Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Chip MacGregor. I am, you don't know me, most likely. I'm a literary agent. I'm a long-time literary agent. And the conference has never had a literary agent speak before, but they called and asked if I would come to introduce people because they had a lot of questions about it. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to present some information about what I do. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I am not like the agent evangelist, okay? I am not here to convince you to get a literary agent. I have a background in artist management, a PhD from the University of Oregon in organizational theory, but I did it specifically to do some artist management and stuff. And so I've been doing this a long time. The youngest of 8 in a big Scottish immigrant family. Neither of my parents went to high school. So when I went to college, nobody in my family had ever been to college before. And so I told the story in the earlier workshop, if you were there. It used to be back in days of yore, there was a student employment office, and you'd go down and they would have jobs on 3x5 cards, like thumbtacked to the wall, and you'd put one down and call it. And I had to pay my way through college. And so I went down there and I looked, and I was looking for something, and it's all like security guards, you know, and I was clearly not given the body to be a security guard. And but one of them, there was a magazine in town in Portland, Oregon, that was looking for a copy editor. People think I'm kidding when I say this, but it's a God's honest truth. I didn't know what a copy editor was, but I knew it had something. I understood the word copy, and I understood the word edit, so I was like, I'll apply for that. Okay, clearly the only applicant, because they offered me the job. I was 19 years old, so I'm 64, and I've been in publishing ever since then. I started out working for a magazine, went to a newspaper, started working in books, and I've been with books now for more than 30 years. I was in the Random House universe for a while, and then became an editor, senior editor in a couple of places, and then was eventually a publisher for Time-Warner. So I was a publisher for Time-Warner in New York and then in Nashville, and started agenting in 1998. So I've been agenting almost 25 years. I've done more than 1,000 book deals. I started my own company 16 years ago, MacGregor Literary, and the summer that I started my company 16 years ago was the summer that Publishers Marketplace started tracking deals. And so I had that happy coincidence of sort of starting at the same time they did. You know, Publishers Marketplace is a great resource for research. It's imperfect in that it's all self-reporting stuff, you know, but I always say to people, look, you know, people want to know if I'm legit. Well, go to Publishers Marketplace. Over the last 15 years, I have normally been that, I know, right now you're wishing you were over there. Don't worry, we're going to have a healing service later, and everyone will be speaking in tongues, and it's going to be great. And they're going to be like, what's going on over there? There'll be a mighty wind rushing over. Anyway, so yeah, over the last 15 years, I have generally been, I've always been in the top 3 agents in the United States. And so I've been busy at this. Here's the deal. Nobody ever says it. There are good and bad agents, just like there are good and bad writers. I was talking to somebody day before yesterday, a young author. She's an actress. She's in Los Angeles. She's, you know, got a part on a TV show and everything, and she did a book, and she was calling me, you know, to say, well, my agent screwed me. I said, well, what do you mean your agent screwed you? Well, I got this literary agent. He sold a book. He sold my book for $20,000. Got the check. I never heard from him again. And I'm like, I am really sorry. I've never heard of that before. That's stealing, and he should go to jail. I don't know what to tell you. I would just say, unlike, you know, somebody gets a degree in medicine so that they can do surgery, they have to have somebody who knows what they're doing sort of oversee the work to make sure that they're competent. Yeah, nobody does that with agents. So consequently, there's good and bad agents. Sorry. You know, I want to be clear, bless you. I want to be clear that for those listening at home, that was somebody sneezing, and they were, oh, it's a show on the highlight reel later. I always start by saying, I'm really not the agent evangelist. I am not here to tell you, oh, you need an agent. Oh my gosh, no, yeah. There's plenty of comparable situations you can put people in. You want to sell your home? Well, you can hire a realtor and pay them 6 or 7%, you know, and they'll take care of stuff for you. And they might be good, or they might not. And they might be worth the money, or they might not. But you know what? You can also sell your home yourself. And you can figure out the paperwork, and you can get it done. And plenty of people do that. When I started agenting, indie publishing didn't exist. I mean, there were vanity presses, you know, talk about getting screwed. You know, I mean, we had terrible stories. I was an early adopter to indie publishing, which very much put me in the minority among agents because so many agents were really negative about indie publishing. Why? Well, because they saw it affecting their income. So I remember being at conferences, being on panels and arguing with people. Wait a minute. If we're supposed to be here taking care of author careers and they can make money doing this, what exactly is the problem? You know, so because of that, I work with a number of authors who traditionally publish and who indie publish. There used to be this one sort of column of publishing. It used to be referred to as the tower. And the tower, all the authors, and as you know, the money is made at the top, you know, the Pareto principle, you know, is Giuseppe Pareto, who was an Italian social economist who was trying to figure out in the 1800s where all the tax money in Italy comes from. And he came up with the Pareto principle, which is 80% of the money coming in comes from 20% of the population. And then people started looking at it, and there's a lot of businesses that are like that. Publishing is like that. 8% of the money is made by 20% of the authors. If you, so I've done a lot of fundraising for nonprofits over the years, because I have that personality. Hey, it doesn't bother me to walk up to people and say, hey, you believe in this? Me too. Why don't you write us a check? You know, and for some reason that scares people, but I've always been able to do that. But I've discovered working with nonprofits, you know what? 80% of the money comes from 20% of the donors. So there used to be this tower where the bulk of the money was made by a few authors, and then there was this middle ground, some people making money, and then there were a whole bunch of people at the bottom who were doing books and not making any money. Agents seem to have thought that that would disappear if we allowed authors to indie publish. Yeah, well, that's been proven complete hogwash because now what we really have are two towers. We do. We have a traditionally published group of people, and we have an indie published group of people. The Pareto principle still exists. 80% of the money is made by about 20% of the authors. But there's a heck of a lot more opportunity than there used to be. And if you're in it for artist management, where you're trying to help authors make a living, that's a good thing. I am old enough to remember, there's nobody else in here that I'll point out that's old enough, because you were all kids. Okay, maybe not you, but I'm old enough to remember Why Johnny Can't Read. Why Johnny Can't Read was a big campaign in the 60s that the US government had. They put it together because they were worried children were growing up being unable to read. And we heard the horror stories. You've got to teach your kids to read because in the future they won't know how to read books and everything like that. Yeah, I've got 3 kids in their 30s now. I remember by the time they were in high school. They read all day. They're on their phone, they're on their computer, they're reading all day long. I know people, I swear, they don't have a life. They just read and write or text. It's a form of writing. And you know, the fact is, I always want writers to hear this message. It's the best time in the history of the planet to be a writer. This right now. That is not hyperbole. I'm not a preacher. I'm not up here to be like, Mr. Positive, everything's going to be great. That's not it at all. I'm just telling you, this is the best time in history to be a writer. It is. I can show you the numbers. There are more people reading today than ever before in the history of the world. There's more books being produced. There will be more books produced this year between traditional and indie publishing, more books produced this year than ever before in the history of the world. More people reading around the world. My earlier workshop was on foreign rights, where I was just trying to say to people, look, you've got to pay attention to this, because foreign rights is going to be like the next big thing. And I don't have the gift of prophecy, but I was the guy who 5 years ago was saying, audiobooks are going to be the next big thing. Audiobooks are going to explode. And 15 years ago saying, you know what, indie publishing is going to be the next big thing. Indie books are going to explode. So I just wanted to offer, here's how this is going to work. I'm just going to take a few minutes to kind of describe what I do, and then I'm going to let you ask questions, anything you want. So a lot of times when they invite me to a writing conference or publishing conference, they will say, would you do Ask the Agent, where people can just show up and they can ask the agent anything they want? Sure. So I gave them that, and they didn't like the title. So it became Creating a Literary Life, I think, right? What? Oh, is that what it is? Creating a hybrid life. So here's what I do with people. I create hybrid lives. I represent a fairly small group of people. Now, there are some agents who represent a vast group of people, 300 authors or something like that. And I would say those literary agents, very similar to insurance agents. So, when was the last time you talked to your insurance agent? Well, it's probably when there was a problem. Your policy was due, you bought a new car and you wanted to fix that, It's not like you're regularly calling your insurance agent. So that's how those agents work. I'm not being critical of them. I'm saying there's different ways to do this job, just like there's different ways to write books. But I did not want to do that. Good Lord, I didn't want to be working with 300 people. I wanted to be working with a small group of people that I could really invest in over time. And so I set it at 60, and then I was like, no, I want to cut it to 40. And then last year I said, I want to cut it to 30. And it's not because I need more time for golf. I don't golf. It was just because I really want to work with a small group of people and see them do something significant. I do, and as I get older, I feel that more and more. So actually, there's an author who I represent who's here in the room right now. It's Lisa Phillips, who's right over here. Everybody's like, oh my God, Lisa Phillips is here. Yeah, they didn't really do that, but I just. But I'm at the place now where I'm like, yeah, you know what? Maybe it's 10 to 15 authors is really what I want, because there's significant things that I want to see done. So here's the thing I want you to understand is not just there are good and bad agents, but people are good. People have different needs. So people come in and ask me, and they generally ask me, how do you get an agent? And that to me is the wrong question. It's like, what do you need? Because here's one of the things. I'm not good at everything. I'm just here to tell you right now. I'm not good at everything. Here's one of the things I'm good at. People want to sit around and just talk through novel ideas. Oh man, I'm great at that. We'll sit down, we'll start talking about, what about this, what about this, what about this? And just coming up with ideas. I'm an idea factory. And I love doing that and talking with an author about that. And we'll just sit down and we'll come up with thriller ideas or something. I represent both fiction and nonfiction. And the genres have changed over the years. I used to not do any true crime because true crime was dead. If you remember when Court TV came out, later True TV, it just killed true crime. Everybody dropped their true crime line because you want a true crime story? Anytime you can just go turn the TV on and 24/7 somebody's getting murdered, And then, here are the detectives who are investigating, and here are the suspects, and here's the evidence that they got, and then they solve it. Surprise. And then publishing is tidal. The tide goes out, the tide comes in, so the tide was way out on true crime. And then suddenly there was an interest in it again, and it was growing. And then when, I'm getting old, The woman who, Melissa, who did her book on the Golden State Killer, suddenly there was vast interest in it. So now I sell a lot of true crime. Mom didn't raise any stupid children. I represent the things that sell. I'm known in the industry for having been here basically for outliving everybody that I grew up with, but also, so we've done a lot of celebrity books over the years, and so I do a lot of memoir, Britney Spears and Brett Favre, and of course those are pretty highbrow books. I doubt you would understand them, but so we'll sit down. Sometimes we'll talk through, and I'll meet with an author and we'll just talk through stuff. What do you write? I will do a read of it, but I don't edit it. And the reason is because there's no money in it. I don't charge. I've never had an author write, but they don't pay me a check, right? So if I represent Lisa and Lisa brings me a manuscript and I sell it to a publisher, then I make a percentage. I make 15%. On whatever the book makes, I make 15%. She gets 85%. And unlike most agents, I have it written into the contract, on any book contract, that the publisher will pay the author directly instead of the whole bullshit series of, we'll send the check to the agent who will sit on it for 60 days, and they'll cut a check to the author and send it. But I don't edit it because there's no money in it. Because I can't. If you're an agent, you can't charge your authors. As a matter of fact, anytime for the work that you do, anytime you have an agent say something to you, oh yeah, I'll read that for you, but you have to write me a check for a reading fee. Yeah, just get up and walk away. Most agents get 15, but I get 25 because I help with marketing. Yeah, get up and walk away. That's just total baloney. I just want everybody to notice that people slowly filtering in the back. See, from the group next door, they've heard. I think the spirit is alive. Anyway, so I'll talk through ideas, and I will tell an author, love this idea, I don't think I can sell that one. And I've learned, the longer I've done this, the more brutal I've gotten at that, just because I've realized I'm not doing an author any favor. Now, I'm not always right. I'm just going to tell you, I don't know who is always right, but I'm not always right. But I'll tell them, I don't think I can sell that. We're working with a guy right now who is huge, CEO of a huge Fortune 500 company and everything like that. He came to me with a book idea, which was terrible. Because what he's known for is making billions of dollars for people on this company, and then he wants to write a memoir, which could be interesting, but not. So I was born in Boise, Ohio, and I did you see how I did that? And so this is where I went to high school, and in junior high, it's like, yeah, who cares where you went to junior high, for crying out loud? So I'm good at talking through that. But if you hand me a manuscript, there's a bunch of agents who used to be editors, and they'd be great agents for you to have if you need somebody to edit your book. It's not me. There are some agents who used to be marketers, and I'm pretty good at talking through marketing stuff, but only because I've done it for a long time. But what I'll do is I'll meet with you, we'll figure out the books that you want to do, we'll figure out what we can sell. I then present it to publishing houses, because that's who knows me. This is what I've been doing forever, so publishers all know me. And then I find somebody who's interested, wants to do it, I negotiate the deal, because I've done contracts for years, something that I'm pretty good at. I was the first guy to do contract workshops, as far as I know. I was the first guy to do contract workshops at writing conferences about 20 years ago. And so I've always been known for that. So I talk about contracts. There are certain things that, like with indie authors, that I'll help with. So for example, if you come in and you're indie publishing, but you need help with audiobooks, we will sell your backlist or the new books, and we'll get audiobooks, audio deals for you. We've done a certain amount of foreign rights. Foreign rights is what I was talking about this morning. Foreign rights has become much tougher since COVID hit. It's just because foreign markets are far less interested in American authors than they used to be. But we'll sell foreign rights. I do a lot of movie and TV and documentary film deals. I think we've done close to 40 documentary films, and we do some feature films. our big hit on the feature film side, this is total bragging, it has nothing to do with the topic, but there was a book about a wrestler, Foxcatcher. He was an Olympic wrestler who was shot and killed by the guy who funded the wrestling team, John DuPont. The wealthiest American ever convicted of first-degree murder in the history of the country, by the way. The movie starred Steve Carell and Channing Tatum and was a finalist for the Oscar, the Movie of the Year. That was from a book that we did. We did the book with Mark Scholes, who was the author, and then we sold it. And so we do that kind of thing. So there are certain rights that we can sell. So there are some people, most people are working with me because of books, but sometimes there's other things. We need to talk about foreign rights, we need to talk about audio, we need to talk about, I've got somebody, they need help with basically getting curriculum or materials out there. They do resource materials, don't do a lot of that. But you know, the funny thing is, when you're in this business for a while, you just never know. Hallmark called one time because they wanted to do a series of greeting cards from a book we had done. We had a game company come in one time, and they wanted to create a board game of a book we had done. Strangest thing I ever did, we did a book 25 years ago, and a Korean like Broadway musical, but in Korean they bought the rights to something and turned it into a Korean musical. Yeah, I know. It's I mention it only because it's just so frickin' weird. So that's what I do. And like I say, I'm pretty good at what I do. I always say to people, I'm a longtime member of what used to be AAR, Association of Author Representatives. It's now called AALA, Allah. American Association. What? I'm a member of AARP as well. AALA, American Association of Literary Agents, based in New York. And there's a certain canon of ethics. If you go to the AALA website, the very first thing you'll see is the canon of ethics for literary agents. And it is basically, it's a trade organization. They try and protect authors from unscrupulous agents, who are out there, by the way. Okay, so that's what I do. Things to know. When people sign with me, they sign what's called an at-will agreement. It says that I'm going to represent them on the books that we agree together. I don't have any kind of pernicious clause that says, I'm going to represent you forever on everything you ever do, including if you write letters to your mother. Mine is an at-will agreement. It starts the day we sign it. It ends when either party wants to back out of it. If the author is like, I want to stand, okay. I've done this for a long time. Who wants to work with somebody who doesn't want to work with them? So that's my life, and that's been my life, like I say, as an agent for the last 25 years. So what I'd like to do, I am happy to answer any question about it. Again, I'm very positive towards indie publishing. We try and encourage our authors to consider both, because traditional publishing is sometimes stupid. I remember sitting in meetings when I was an associate publisher with Time-Warner. I remember sitting in meetings and hearing people say, well, we can't have an author do 4 books a year. Yeah. So one of the people, one of the people that we published was James Patterson. Yeah. So I think it was my last year when Time-Warner sold to Hachette, who kept me around for about 8 months, and then they axed us all. But I think it was the last year I was there. Jim did 10 books in 12 months. 8 of them hit the New York Times list. And I remember going, really? I thought he couldn't do that, And it's just one of those, the notion of, oh, you're going to do a book, but then you're not going to do a book for another year and stuff. In other words, my point is, there's stupid stuff in publishing. But there's also difficult stuff. So you're going to be given a contract if you ever do a book with a traditional publisher. So what do you know about contracts? Yeah, so that's I've got news for you. The publisher has a team of lawyers and accountants who know all about contracts, and they are not there, to look after your best interests. So who's speaking for you? That's one of the things. You've got a book that you want to turn into a film. So who do you know in the film world? So, if you need somebody to help you, that's what a literary agent exists for, to be able to help with that sort of stuff. And so, so I just wanted to introduce a concept because there's been sometimes this tension where the traditional people don't like indie publishing, and the indie people don't like, because they always thought, oh, agents are just trying to screw us. They're just trying, I'm giving away a bunch of my money. You want to know what the most important thing that I do? It doesn't even have to do necessarily with any particular book. The most important thing I do is I get to be a wise friend to authors. I get to be the guy who has been in the industry since the 1980s, so like before most of you were born, and who's seen a lot of stuff and had a lot of success. And I talk to them like about their careers, for example. I mean, who's giving writers career advice? When I was in my doctoral program at the University of Oregon, I got what's called a GTF, a graduate teaching fellowship. And it was to help people in the arts. You see, University of Oregon at the time had a bunch of MFA programs where you could get MFA in poetry or in creative writing or in music performance or in vocal performance. If you were a trombone player or a violin player. And so they had all these, in dance, for example. But they had nothing to help those people with careers. And so when I was in my doctoral program, they gave me a GTF and they said, you've got 2 years. We want you to create materials for us to help people getting an MFA to figure out how to have a career. And I still remember the first career, it started with this. They had a bunch of violin players. So you have to be pretty good to get into a Master of Fine Arts as a violin player already. So we're not dealing, it's not like some snotty-nosed kid with his little Suzuki lesson, right? I mean, people are pretty good to get into an MFA program to begin with. But then what are you going to do? Yeah, somebody is going to be so good that they're hired, by the London Philharmonic. But what is a guy who's, fifth chair in the orchestra? What does he do? What does a woman who's playing the flute do? And what happens, of course, is that the guy playing the violin puts together a string quartet that plays at weddings. And I'm out in Portland, Oregon, and so, spends part of the year playing for the Portland Symphony, and also gets picked up sometimes to, play violin when they have live music at the Northwest Opera or the Northwest Ballet, and offers, Suzuki lessons to snotty kids. But what do you have to cobble together a career, which is the conversation I have with authors. How can we help you cobble together a career so that you can actually make a living at this? Also, what's success to you? So for some people, it's like success is I'm just going to write books, I'm going to make this much money. And for other people, it's like, no, I just want to do a book. I've got this other career where I want to do a book every once in a while, but I want to make sure it's good. Okay. So let's talk about that. So I want you to be able to ask questions. You have to go to the microphone to ask a question because they want it recorded. Any question you have, it's wide open. You can ask anything you want. So feel free to go over there. And we'll try and get through these quickly. As you can see, I just am so fast with my answers. Yeah. Yes?
Hi, thank you. You were just beginning to touch on it. Many of us have day jobs in order to fund living. And classic advice in the indie world is to stay in your lane, right? To pick a genre and go deep if you want to make a living at it. But many of us creatively need to also do other things.
Absolutely.
So when an agent is looking at a previously self-published author or currently self-published author, what is it beyond the content that you might be looking at? For example, if someone who's writing romance but now has a family drama.
That's a great question. For me, that's a fairly simple answer. It would be, some of the elements would be, what's the story that they're writing, and do I feel that that's something I can sell? I have a wheelhouse, and there's certain things that I just don't sell. I've never sold a horror book. Just for some reason, I don't know. I don't read it. I wouldn't know a good one if you came up and tattooed it, on my backside. So do I like the story? Do I feel like I sell it? Number two, is the writing engaging? This is so funny for me. I've always been able to pick something up and read it, and in the first couple of pages know if I think it's well written or not. Now, I'm not always right. Again, I have turned people down who went on to publish and everything like that, and then they always want to show up at cocktail parties, and so they can snub me. But the fact is, you don't want, if the agent doesn't like what you wrote, for God's sake, you don't want them representing you. You know, imagine what that conversation's like. Yeah, well, I've got this crappy book here I could show you. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense at all. So I look at the idea and I look at the writing, and those are the first two things I look at. And the reason is because I want to make sure that I actually like the writing, or there's no sense going on. Third thing is I always try to have a conversation with them, because I need to be comfortable. I have to actually, this is so funny, because again, I'm different from some agents. I have to actually like the person. Life is too short. When I was younger and I had a couple of big successes with people who I genuinely didn't like, or I wasn't comfortable with, I'll put it that way. There was one guy we did a memo with, big celebrity. He called his wife a name in front of me at dinner. And it was like, we're all like, what is wrong with you? So that's one of the things. I have to be comfortable with the person. I have to like them. I'm sorry, I'm getting a tickle in my throat. It's not that that's such an emotionally moving story. No, it's true.
It's because you care.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So those are the first three things. Okay, then realistically, the fourth thing is, what have they done in the past? Do they have any kind of a backlist? Do they have any kind of track record? And the fifth thing would be, what's their platform like? Platform is easy. Platform is just a number. You have an email list. How many are on that? You've got Facebook. How many are on that? You've got social media. How many are Instagram, Twitter? You write for a local newspaper or an online magazine, or you've got a blog, you've got a podcast, you've got a YouTube channel. How many people? That's what it is. How many touch points? You know, and here's the insider secret. The bigger the number, the better. See, right there, that just paid for the cost of your conference coming. Sort of insider wisdom. So those are all things I look at. And then finally, I would say the sixth thing is, I'm always like, is anybody going to buy this book? Because sometimes I will see, I just saw a fantastic history book. It was sent to me, guy's a history prof at Iowa or Iowa State. Oh, it's fascinating stuff, because I love history. Nobody's ever going to publish this book. It's so obscure. And I just said to him, look, go to, a university press and get it done. No. I said, and he's talking movie rights and everything. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, man. And so that's one of the things. Even though I loved the writing and really liked the guy, he's just crazy smart, but I didn't think there was anybody who was going to publish that book. And so I said no. So, does that help?
Yes.
Good, yes. Hello.
Hello again, Chip.
Hello again. I still like your jacket, which is really cool.
Well, I still like wearing my jacket, so I'll keep wearing it, and you can keep liking it. So could you tell us, I have two questions.
Okay.
Could you tell us what you're not good at? I know it could be a very long list, possibly, but just list, here are the main things that some agents do that I don't do.
Oh, yeah.
You've mentioned a few.
Yeah, editing is one. One thing that I and it's not that I can't
horror,
do it. There are some things also, I seem to have limitations when it comes to science fiction fantasy. I have limitations. It's not that I don't do it. I have some limitations with it. And I think, if I'm completely honest about it, I think it's that I wonder sometimes if I've aged out of that, because publishing is dynamic. It's always moving forward and everything like that. The editors who are acquiring it all now seem to be younger than my children. And I think where they used to see me as being, oh, this really experienced guy, now it's just like, God, this old guy came in. He was, yeah. And so, my mom taught me to be polite, and I will be polite with people, but I have, I suffer fools badly. I really do. So if I say to somebody at a conference, yeah, I don't think this works because of this, and then they want to explain to me, oh, no, it will because, thanks. I'm always at that point, it's like, thanks. And so I have sometimes had a reputation for being funny, but being a bit blunt, pretty blunt, with both a good and bad thing.
Not necessarily a bad thing.
I can't dunk a basketball. I'm terrible at golf, if that helps.
Do you do licensing? Do you help with licensing?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, we do licensing all the time. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay, what's your second question? Oh, was that? That was the second
Licensing.
question. Great.
Whether or not you do licensing.
All right,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah. And you already mentioned foreign rights, so.
I've got 5 minutes left. Yes, ma'am.
Going to kind of piggyback on the foreign rights thing. So last year I sold my books to a German publishing house who'd reached out to me, so I skipped the agent part.
Great.
But then I wanted to go and inquire with other agencies about selling my foreign rights to other markets, and all of them came back and said they wouldn't just do my foreign rights. So is that an anomaly, or is that
So
something?
were you going to U.S. publishers to ask them to take?
I was going to agents, like U.S. agents. to
Yeah,
see if
okay,
they would
so just so
sell.
you know, so there are some agencies, and that specialize just in doing foreign rights. It's the Greyhawk agency, for example, they do about half of the U.S. books that are sold in Asia go through one agency, and that's all they do. As a matter of fact, if you were to go to Publishers Marketplace, you familiar with Publishers Marketplace? For those who don't know, you pay $20 a month, and it is just a great database of information. And you can go there, and you can just see who are the agents selling into Sweden, for example. Or I want to find out which agencies have done the most in selling books into Russia. Or into France or wherever. So you can do that, because there are some agencies that specialize just in foreign stuff. If you email me, and you tell me what markets you want to be in, I can help probably answer some questions. It's just chip@MacGregorLiterary.com. MacGregor has an A in it. A lot of U.S. agents, they don't want to only take on foreign rights because foreign rights are slow, because the rest of the world is not at the same pace that the U.S. is, which, right now everybody's like, he's got 9 minutes left, and often, and the market is just so much smaller. The German market, for example. Somebody was asking me earlier today, where they were asking about the German market. The German market, Germany's the biggest country in Western Europe and everything like that. The book market, the publishing market in Germany, frankly, the publishing market's better in France, and depending on the genre, it's better in Italy, and so that's one of the reasons why. So agents will look at that, and it's like, well, if I could do so sometimes with foreign stuff, if there's a lot of foreign rights that I could sell with this, not just one country, but a lot of foreign rights. If there's dramatic rights that I could sell, if there's stage rights I can sell, if there's going to be any ancillary stuff that we're going to do, then they will look at it. I've sometimes will help, I was helping Lisa with audio, for example, just trying to take some of her stuff and get it into audio. So that's something that agents should be able to help you with. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Nobody else has questions otherwise.
Anybody else have a question that you want to ask? Anything, you can ask anything you want. It doesn't have to be, you want to know, what's the capital of Brazil? Or something. Yes, ma'am. Could you move just over to the microphone, only because they want this recorded. Oh, yeah. For those listening at home, so it's Chip MacGregor, MacGregor Literary. It's chip@MacGregorLiterary.com. MacGregor has an A in it because we're Scottish, not Irish.
And then I wanted to know if you did an agent did any books that were historical fiction related?
I'm sorry, that were what?
Historical fiction.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. To be fair, there are some agents who only do fiction. What's her name in White Salmon? Natasha Kern. Natasha Kern's a good friend of mine, lives in White Salmon. She only does fiction. Great agent. She's been at it since the 70s. She's been at this a long, long time. But she only does fiction. There are some agents who only do nonfiction. I tend to do projects that I like, so I've done a variety of them. I'll tell you what the weakness of that is, by the way. You were asking about weaknesses. The weakness is sometimes people always want to ask, well, what are you looking for? And I've got this terrible answer. Stuff I like. I'm a vast reader. I'm a huge reader, something that my parents, while not educated, but if you're from an immigrant family, you realize there's a difference between being uneducated and being stupid. My parents weren't educated, but they were not stupid at all. They were both big readers, and they taught me to love language, and like a lot of Celtic people, to love wordplay. My dad was great at limericks. It's one of those things that, because I read so widely and I read so much, and if I'm not reading, I'm listening to a book because I love audiobooks. And so people will ask, what are you looking for right now? Usually I don't have an answer. It's not because I'm not like sitting around going, all right, I really need historical fiction set in the Regency period, but in France. That's just not how I work, So I look at stuff.
And then one last thing, I'm
Sure.
sorry to monopolize, but do you focus just on series? This conference seems to be more focused on series.
I've noticed that. I noticed the conference is focused on series. Series are great because it gives you more products to sell. I don't just focus on series.
Okay.
Only because sometimes you'll see a great story and there is just no good sequel to it. It just isn't. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, sir. I've got, what have I got? Like 5 minutes left? About 5 minutes? Yeah, go ahead.
3.5. So you said you're blunt. I love it. I want to hear, for people who have previously self-published books out there, is there like a threshold of like how much sales they've had? That like if it's below that, you're like, nah, not worth it?
Let me ask that question from a publisher's perspective, just so you know. Publishers come in 4 sizes. We used to always say they come in 3, small, medium, large. They come in, large. It's always a bad sign when people start leaving, especially if you represent them and everything.
You're the best, Chip.
Yeah, that is so true. We used to talk about publishers as being small, medium, large, and now we talk about small, medium, large, and micro because all these small presses that have started. Each of those have a sales threshold that they would really like to see. So if you start with large publishers, I can tell you, large publishers, what they will tell you is, we really only want to talk to authors that we know we can sell 25,000 copies of or more. Now, to be honest, they'll stretch that down to 15 if they need to, if they really believe in a project. But they're probably working on 20 or 21,000 when they write their profit, when they do a P&L sheet where they're working out how much is this going to cost us to print, what's a paper cost, paper keeps going up and it's harder to find, what's paper cost, ink costs, what we call IPB, ink paper binding costs and everything. So what's production cost, what's the shipping going to be, how much, what's the advance, because we've got those blood-sucking authors, they want money for their art. How much are we going to spend on marketing and stuff like that? So they put a P&L sheet together. Large publishers will tell you, we want to take projects on that we think we can sell 25,000 or more.
Is that all formats, or is that just physical copies? Or?
So it used to be physical copies, now it's in all formats. And publishers are, even though they pay a higher royalty on ebooks, 25%, which is, I'm telling you as an agent, far too low, 25%, which is what all the publishers are going. And those of us who are literary agents keep pressing to make that number higher. There should be some threshold where it goes higher, because publishers are staying in business on ebooks because the margins are so much more beneficial for print publishers, traditional publishers, with ebooks. Medium-sized publishers, they will say to you, we're trying to sell 15. They're basically trying to sell in the teens, somewhere between 12 and 20. But it's usually about 12 where they write their P&L. But they'll say 15. Small publishers will often have, they'll say 5,000, but they're running 3,000 to 6,000. They figure with a small publisher, if they can sell 5,000, 6,000 copies, they're pretty happy with it. Micro publishers, it's usually below 3. And so as an agent, who do I want to sell to? Well, I want to sell to the people who are going to make my author the most money. Again, that's not rocket science. But I'm surprised sometimes. Here's something. I never take signing authority for an author. I can't sign the deal for them, never. And the reason is because there are times where an author simply wants to go with a smaller publisher, even if it's less money. Okay, my job is to give them, I'll give them the reasons why they should consider this other deal, but the fact is, I'll do what they want to do. So, does that help?
Yeah.
Yep. You guys have been really nice. If you have any questions, I want you to feel free to write to me, chip@MacGregorLiterary.com. It's really nice to meet you. I'll hang around up here if you want to ask questions. Thanks.